Good evening, everyone. Call this meeting to order, December 4, 2023. The Westminster Township Supervisors, all rise and please say the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all. Okay, Sarah, go ahead. Do you have something to say?
Yes. One minute, Jackie's.
Okay, you said first, so. Unfortunately, Jackie took ill today and is currently in the emergency room, so she won't be attending. And what that means is a lot of your questions we don't have answers for. But we'll still continue on with the meeting. I'll take as many notes. So if you care to ask questions, we'll make sure that they are answered for the next meeting.
Two brief comments. I'd like to clarify something that was said at our last meeting about the police facility. It was said that we didn't have the money. What we don't have, because the 2022 audit was not submitted, is access to grant funding. This affects any grant partners. My second comment is, at our last meeting, I voted against releasing the budget because it was not complete. That's still the case. Not all the funds are addressed in the budget. And I'm on the record with the other supervisors. I will go on the record now that I will not vote for a budget with over $1 million deficit. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so old business, first is approve the contract for the township manager, Jackie Gunther. Do I have a motion?
I think we need to table that because this is a workshop. We did not advertise we would be doing business tonight.
Dave?
Well, it's my understanding your workshops are advertised here.
Correct.
Are advertised as township meetings.
Correct.
Did you
Supervisor meetings.
read that? Or you-
I have not seen the advertisements. Typically, it's a public meeting with supervisors during which supervisors conduct any business that comes before them on the agenda in advance.
My issue with it is that we had told the public that we were going to share it and review it, and that we were going to vote on it at the next meeting. So and in fact, the email that went out that I saw at 4:30 on Friday said just that we were going to review the contract, and somehow now it says approved. So I'm not sure how that changed. And I'm not comfortable because we're talking about things that we want that are still not quite right in the contract. So I'm happy to talk about those now, but I don't think we should vote on them so urgently when the plan was to vote on our next meeting.
So would we table the vote but still have the discussion? Because we told the residents that we would share that with them.
I think we should share the points of the contract. You said you would do that.
Okay, all right, so failure to have a second, if I were to initiate. We are tabled, so for next meeting, we'll share the contract so that the public has a chance to review it.
I think we might want
Can
to
we
share
share
it
it now?
today.
So we can vote on it?
Do we have it to share tonight?
I would have to ask you, because you were the one who sent me what I thought was most recent dates version 3.
That's correct. However, I think everything's on tonight, which I hope so.
Okay, so is that something that we can fix and get out to the public soon?
Sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's simple. It's a matter of limiting severance compensation to 3 months.
If the current contract reads, it's
Left
1
it
year
open
for,
ended.
1 year for, or what, I'm sorry, 1 month for every year. And we would like to put an end to that.
To a maximum.
Okay, so is this a change that Kathy could make to the document and could be posted on the website tomorrow? Or Dave, whoever's document it is.
Whoever has it.
It's my document, we can make the change tomorrow. Send it to whoever we're going to send it to, and so it can be posted.
I think we got it in Word, didn't we? So
I-
we shouldn't have to pay legal fees to change something like that.
It's up to you.
I would
If
hope
it's
it
in
would
Word.
take you a minute.
Okay. So somebody will see that the change is made and that the contract is posted tomorrow.
Okay.
Right, Dave, if you send it to me,
Okay.
after you make the changes, I can put it up.
And is there anything else about the contract you want changed while we're talking about it? So that we have a contract that you can post.
Well, now that you mention it. There it is. Don't turn the phone. Can't find my notes. But the other issue had to do with the, it it said in there, which was something that mirrors our handbook, which is, I don't think, a complete document that needs to be sorted out a little bit better. It has 7% that the township would fund to her 401A. And I would really like to look at that because I was kind of surprised at that. That's just another 7% that we're giving, and apparently we have that in our handbook to do for all of our non-union folks, and I think we need to look at it and talk about it. And that was one of the things that I felt needed to be shook out before we changed this contract.
Dana, last year, we passed a resolution.
I would-
So at this point in time, we're going to hold this contract up to go and resolve this issue across the board. We're just,
Well,
it's just,
if you don't resolve the issue before you do the contract, then you're basically giving it to her in perpetuity, and then when she needs for other people, then it's no longer.
I think there's
I just have a lot of
also,
questions, and yet no one has been able to talk to me about them.
and I
so-
think one of the issues is the employee handbook that you're referring to
Right, there's a lot
has
of
not been
inconsistencies.
adopted by the township.
No.
I believe it's a draft produced
There's
by
a lot
the
of
staff.
inconsistencies, and there's a lot of questions in it, question marks, so it's clearly not a final document. And if certain things in this contract relating to the employee handbook, it's just, I'm sorry, I would like to button it up before we make a contract with someone else.
Does anyone know what the 401k plan says about employee
I'd like to
contribution?
see it.
Because that's what you control.
I've been asking, I'd like to see that.
The resolution that was adopted last year, what was that for? Was that the plan or
It was to change it from 5% to 7%.
an amendment to the plan? To allow an amendment to the plan so it would be 7%?
I don't think they would have amended the plan, would have amended the contribution from the township. In other words, so it's just our change. I don't think the plan itself mandates, I know with 401k, there's no, some employers don't match, others do.
And I'm all for a match. I'm all for that. But I know you can't have a match in a 401A, but you can in a 403B, which I don't know if it can be changed to that. I just think that the point of the contribution is to encourage people to change their salary. We're already offering a generous salary, and I think adding another 7% is a lot.
Well, what, with respect to the manager's contract, why don't we have language, something to the effect of township shall contribute to the township 401A plan on behalf of the manager as per the township policy, or as per,
I would
something
go for
like
that,
that,
so we
so
can still work on
depending on
it.
what that policy becomes.
Right.
Something like that.
Yep.
Get
Sure.
past this.
I mean, everybody else might agree that it should be that, but I think that it needs to be, I don't want to be held into a contract for that.
Agreed. Thank you.
Sarah?
I said agreed,
Oh,
thank
great.
you.
I didn't hear
But
you.
I
Okay.
do notice that Carl's been waiting.
Yeah, okay, all right, so.
I think you're up.
Dave,
Chair has the control of the floor.
Bernie, Carl is
yes,
waiting.
I
You
understand,
two
okay.
don't.
Sarah, I'm waiting for Dave.
Thank
So
you.
you don't get confused.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was just making a change on my copy.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Carl?
Couple thoughts. This has been going on for a while. Does this have to be done by the next meeting? I think that's irresponsible to contemplate these changes with such pressure overnight to be posted on the website tomorrow. I want to see the contract before we approve it, of course, as a resident. But there's this push. I don't think it's necessary. It's not responsible. And I question 7%. This is a contract employee separate from all the other employees by design. We want to keep a short contract term. Whatever the compensation is should be considered separately from all the other employees because it's rewards-based, reduction-based. This is an opportunity. So that it's tied in with everyone else's compensation. If we're going to do that, either we're going to drop the manager's salary down to commensurate with the workload everyone else carries, or we're going to bring everybody else up to $159,000. That's not appropriate. The manager's not working much harder than the roadmaster, for instance. But the proposed salary is twice the roadmaster's salary. And the health insurance and the pension, which is a large number, and the compensation for this position is not substantially lower than a private sector job with similar responsibilities. So it's not like this person's working at half the rate that the private sector person received for the job. Could they? Of course, but most people don't. But that 7% match is pretty nice on top of long-term disability, on top of health insurance, on top of the other benefits that they get. It's a pretty sweet package. So I think that should be a lower number. But I want to see this contract. I want to see the details. Don't rush this. And then along with this, what are the duties of this person? Are we getting rid of the treasurer?
They're all laid out in the contract.
Okay, great. But I'd like to see that. And are we going to have a treasurer or not have a treasurer? Because no one in the budget.
The contract is silent on that.
Okay.
The contract is silent.
Can I just say to you too that it is not 159. It's not what we're offering. I want to make sure you're clear of that.
That's what's in the budget prepared by whomever prepared the budget. 159 is the compensation for 2023. It's right in there. That's
Well, 2023 includes
That was
the
2022
previous
budget.
manager. I mean, it
it's a
includes some
couple
other.
$1,000s more for 24, and a couple $1,000s more for 25. It's 160 something, I think, for 25.
No. That was previous.
So
First,
it's different
it says-
sheet than what I saw. That's not what I saw.
It has 159 budgeted for 2023. On this page, maybe it doesn't say township manager, but for 2024, it budgets 130.
Pull the page up that I saw, but that's what I came
Right,
up with.
and that
It was
is-
clear it was town manager's salary.
That
was
is the
previous.
base, that is the base, is 130 that we have in the current contract. And I will let you know that we started John Granger at 135. I don't know how he got as high as he did in a short amount of time.
A lot of questions about
Yeah.
Granger, everybody who was involved in that hire.
That's
Is the manager going to be the
facts.
treasurer? Is that part of the expectations of the function of the manager?
For the short term,
Are we compensating the manager for that, or are we gonna get a reduction when we get a treasurer?
we're not going to ask for a reduction.
Okay. So who's gonna do the books? I'm just, this is all related, because the manager is the treasurer, the manager hires the lawyers, contract, the treasurer, and both are behind. All of this, it's just not clear. That's all of our concern. Out in the public, we're all worried about that. And then we're, projected $1 million back. We're worried about this, and we want to get this right now, and no chance in the future that's going to get out of
And we're not rushing.
hand.
By the way, we're not being rushed. That's why we're not doing it today.
Terrific. I'm encouraging not to.
But I do think that it's kind of like we need to follow through and move through with this on the next meeting, whatever we're doing, we need to do it because we've just been playing with this for too long. We need to move forward and have everybody know their roles and move forward. So I would like to see this put to bed at the next meeting. I'm not trying to just drag it out indefinitely. I'm dragging it out for the things that I feel are not being fully discussed and shared.
I don't think you're dragging it out. I think you're doing your job. And I think it's important that this is given consideration, because the last manager is a very good example of things were done a little too quickly and a little inappropriately. We got a big bill to cover. So I really appreciate it. We took a slow boat approach till the beginning of the year and let this all start at the beginning of the year, perhaps. The reorg meeting hopefully will be on reorg day. I think that would be a much better approach.
Thank you. Julia?
Hello, Julia Brindle, 2472 Flowing Springs Road. Question. Is there any part of the manager duties that she cannot do because she does not have a contract? Does she have all of the authority to do everything that she needs to do without a contract and acting? Is she still considered the interim or temporary manager, or is she officially the manager just without a contract?
That's Dave. I'm
Well,
for you.
she's interim or acting until she's officially appointed as manager.
Appointed her as manager the last.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Changed her status.
But then she's operating as manager with whatever salary she.
Without
has at the
contract,
time.
which I don't
Yeah.
think is correct.
Contract, a written contract is not necessary for her to be manager.
Okay, so there's nothing that she is limited to by not having the contract.
No.
Okay. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Larry?
Hi, I'm Larry Stone at 1645 Birch Run Road. I have a suggestion. I think we should not consider this contract until the audit is finished and we get a reasonable budget. The budget is complete. I don't see why we would consider a contract before that. If this person can't do those things, why are we giving her a contract?
Thank you.
John Eldridge, 1634 Hilltop Road. I don't think she should get a contract. Now, and maybe I'm too narrowly focused on finances, but I know every month the treasurer's report comes out after close of business on Friday afternoon, and usually it's changed on Monday because people look at it and say you're missing this. Like last month, it never was published general fund October year to date. It always was on every other month, but again, even in the update, it wasn't published. The 2022 audit, which hasn't been complete, I think that's a lot of her responsibility. Granted, there was problems, but it was due April 1st, and we should have focused. Somebody should have focused on getting that done shortly thereafter. But here now we're going to talk about somebody to do work on QuickBooks on 2022, and what is it, December? It's not going to get done until March or April, and we've, I guess, been filing extensions all along during that time. The budget, going over this budget, first off, yes, next year shows a loss. It's
John?
interesting.
John, could you stick to the subject? We're talking about Jackie's contract. We're going to get to the budget.
My reasoning for saying that I don't think she should have a contract, one of the reasons is the budget is so poorly done. So that's why I'm bringing up the budget.
Okay.
And if you look at like this draft, numbers aren't even filled in. The $1 million loss, I have to do it on my calculator at hand. And then the reason,
John,
I think.
John, you're really getting into the weeds of
Okay.
so let's save that for the contract
Okay.
or the budget period.
And then the issue with this paragraph, the office morale, I think a lot of that is the responsibility of the manager of the office. And I've managed offices, and employees have problems and they have complaints and they run hot and cold. And you sit down and talk to them and say, what's your issue? And if they have an issue with somebody, you say, okay, I'll talk to them. And you pay attention. And it doesn't boil over, to my mind, in that paragraph that said supervisors ought to all be dismissed or something. So all those things, I think, are shortcomings in the capabilities of this person.
I can assure you, John, that the morale in the office is bolstered by Jackie. It's not due to Jackie. And she has done everything to support the staff. Thank you. Tom?
Hi, Tom Helwig, 2034 Pottstown Pike. I was a little curious about something that's just discussed here about the tying of the 8%. And I said, well, okay, write that in, and then I'm not going to hold it to that. I change that other document. When you write that in, how are you going to write it in? Is it as written today or subject to change at whatever that change may be?
Per township, it'll be per township policy. So as township policy changes.
Okay. Well, that was exactly clear. I would hope you make that absolutely clear.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on. Appoint Bob Beskin, that should be GIN, to correct 2022 QuickBooks. Do I have a motion?
I will make a motion to appoint Bob Beskin to correct the 2022 QuickBooks.
Do I have a second? I'll second.
Again, I believe you're conducting business in a non-business
We
meeting.
can,
Well,
We
I'm
can-
assuming that we're allowed to based on what our solicitor has told us.
So we have a new solicitor. I'm thrilled we have a new solicitor, but we also have years of our precedent telling the public that the workshops are workshops. We're not going to conduct business. We waffled so much on the agenda. It went back and forth on the website, I don't know, 3 or 4 times about whether they were agenda items or not, that we have not given our public a clear expectation of what was going to happen tonight. Were we going to do business or were we not? And as you said, Friday afternoon, it said discuss. And today it says do this business. And so that's just,
Okay, now I have a question for Dave. Whether or not we actually approve it here or approve it at our next meeting, we can still move forward with that, correct? So we don't have to make this, I mean, we can still go forward with having them do this work, but we could discuss the basics of it.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Just saying, I don't
You
want him
need
to wait 2
appoint-
weeks if he thinks he can get this done by the end of the year. Like
You need to appoint.
and this is
Look, we-
considered a public meeting, so we can,
You could do it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, but
So
what
that's-
makes 2 weeks?
so Dana's question is, we could get him started and essentially ratify his contract in 2 weeks.
You could do that way. I would prefer you did it rather than have a contract before you started the work. You can always ratify a contract.
this is a public meeting, correct, Dave?
Yes.
Okay. public
meeting.
that. So, Tina, you made the motion,
I did.
and I'll second the motion. Discussion.
Well, hell's gonna freeze over because this is the first time I've ever agreed with Sarah. It is, and it's kind of frightening. Last week, this week, world ends. Sarah's right. When it was initiated, and the old attorney knows that, I wouldn't expect the new one to know it, but yes, this is a workshop, and a workshop is very clear when it was first adopted. Why not just call it a township meeting, a Board of Supervisors township meeting? There's no need to classify it as workshop or township meeting. And the reason for that is you are not allowed to vote on things at these workshops are very clear, and it's done in Upper Euclid. The workshop is the workshop. You can discuss things, you talk about things, you take action at the next meeting. Sarah's exactly right. That's how it was adopted. That's the way it's supposed to be. Otherwise, they'd just all be township meetings, and that would be it.
Barry, as you recall, there used to be twice a month. Township meetings were twice a month.
That's correct.
And it didn't matter what meeting it was, you could vote on.
Right, because it was a township meeting. That is absolutely correct. And then to move it to one township meeting, and then the thing is, well, what if we have things we need to discuss? Otherwise, those meetings will go too long. So you could have workshops, and that is why it was put in place. And then if you don't really have anything, you skip it. You don't have the meeting because there's nothing really to discuss. We're going to the next one. And as I said, the township solicitor, the last time this came up, said, oh no, this was advertised specifically and changed to a township meeting.
It was a special.
It was, right, but it was, right, it was a special meeting, and you guys went through that, so you've set the precedent. Again, I'm gonna say this, Sarah's right.
Thank you, Barry.
Right is right and wrong is wrong. I've said my
Say
piece.
that part.
Please. Strike that from the record, Your Honor.
What credentials does Bob have to make him, QuickBooks, you need an accountant, you don't need a QuickBooks teacher. So all he says is gonna fix QuickBooks. Nothing wrong with QuickBooks. What's wrong with it that all these treasurers, these clerks that posted to it?
Number one, he's a CPA. He's the auditor for many of the surrounding townships, the horseshoe grounds. Beyond that, you'd have to ask him.
That sounds proper.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. And
Are we not
nays?
vote? I mean, I don't know what to do here, so.
I abstain.
You
Okay,
abstain?
I agree
Okay.
to going forward with it as soon as possible, whether or not we can legitimately do it today, that's, I think I'll leave it in the hands of our attorney.
You can.
Already chimed in? So, okay,
Sarah, you can't abstain unless you have a,
Barry.
she can't abstain.
What do I need?
It has to be
Yeah,
a
reason why.
serious issue.
You have a conflict.
You don't want to make up a load.
Do you have a conflict?
I do have a serious issue. I don't know how much we've already paid Barbara Kate Thornton for their portion of the audit. I asked one time within the last several months, and I was told something like $20,000. So it's a no or yes. Do I have an issue? You don't need to hear it. Is that what you're saying? Yes, I have an issue.
You can abstain for personal, in other words, a conflict. If you have a conflict,
Okay, well then,
you have to vote yes or no.
so Dave, I just need to vote yes or no. Is that
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yes.
Then I vote no. Thank you, Barry. Now we're even again, right?
I would like to just say a few things about, question about Bob. We had a meeting with him earlier today. Sarah wasn't able to make that, but it was Bernie, myself, Dave, and we also had the auditor on as well. So the point of that was to verify that what he had planned was going to be sufficient for the auditor. And he talk about time frame. And he feels that his goal is going to get this done by the end of the year. It might take a little bit longer, but that's his goal, and this all works well into the plan for the auditor to complete at that time. So we felt very good about our path forward.
And that means he'll do the QuickBooks, and then we go back to Barbara Kate Thornton to finish
Completed,
Yeah.
correct.
audit.
Yes.
Yes, and the point of talking to Barbara Thornton, to Steve, was to verify before we pay this gentleman to take up more of our money and our time, that what he was doing was going to be.
What they needed, what
What
they
they-
wanted,
yeah,
in order for them to do books professionally.
So I feel comfortable that he's our guy, and we need someone to do this and do it quickly, and he's very motivated to do that for us. So I would like to not lose that opportunity to get him started as soon as possible and get our audit up to speed.
Next on to new business, a discussion of 2024 draft. As I had said earlier, unfortunately, Jackie's unable to make it here tonight. And we will take questions at this point unless
Well, I'm going to echo something that Sarah, I think, said earlier, someone else did, that, I feel that there are a couple of things that are still missing that we want to share here. So we were just talking about this earlier, and I'm sure that Jack can get this for us, but we really need to clarify for the capital funds that that's not here, what the plans are for the roads moving forward.
This budget is just a general fund budget.
Yes.
It is missing 5 or 6 of our funds, including open space, liquid fuels, capital. I
Right.
don't know.
And I was
yours-
talking to, you're correct, and I was talking to Dave about this earlier, and he was making the point that, they're not really budget items, that's just fun, show the funds, which we should be doing, but that things like the capital fund, the roads, we need to show that because that's all budgeted for next year. So I would like to see that before this is approved. And there's some little questions and inconsistencies, but I'm sure we'll hear what everybody else has to say.
Well, and I think, Dana, one of my concerns about the other funds is that when the general fund was reconciled last summer and we said all the money's there, not everything's been reallocated to the right spot. So we had no concerns about our township finances. Not all of the other funds were reconciled, including open space and liquid fuels. So we have some assurance that the big part of our budget is clean. But what about these parts that don't even show up in our draft
Well,
for
and that's another thing about
2024?
open space, while it's not something that we're budgeting for, I would like to see the reconciliation of that.
Okay, thank you.
Jenny,
Jamie McVicker, 407 Black Horse Road. I have so many questions. And Jackie had very nicely, I reached out to Jackie individually and said, I have so many questions. And I said, I don't want to be confrontational. There's just so much that's unusual in this. And I'm guessing a lot of it's because it's a different person, maybe in charge of the budgeting process. But, and first of all, can I just say, well, not first of all, because I've already spoken, but can I just say, or somebody pass along to Jackie, I hope she's doing better. Whatever it is temporary and she gets over it fast. I hope she's okay. All right. Real estate tax worksheet. And there were so many typos on the left-hand side of this. I hope somebody proofreads it with her if she's the one who wrote it. Even on that page,
What page?
it says page 2 down in the corner, but it's a couple of pages after.
Beginning, yep.
Yeah. Is it still Berkheimer who collects our real estate tax? I thought it was Keystone. Maybe it is Berkheimer. Yeah, so that should be changed. Besides it being spelled wrong, it's also the wrong name of the organization. So under the, I'm looking at the blue section. For some reason, on some pages, the previous year activity is listed there, and on this page it isn't, and on many pages it isn't. So some pages it is, some pages it isn't. It'd be nice if that all locked in. That's the only point on that one. 2 pages after that, earned income tax worksheet. In 2021, it was only 100. We only collected 190,000, and then last year it was almost 2 million. And this year, we've already collected 2.2, but the budget for next year is only 2.2. So this might help with the budget deficit issue, but if we've already collected 2.2, I would think that we could raise the budgeted expectation for 2024 and beyond to at least 2.4, 2.5.
Fire, that's fair.
Hope you're taking copious notes on all my.
Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. Next page, cable franchise fees, which I don't know what they are, but whatever. So we budgeted 84,000 this year, and again, it's hard to see. Okay,
70,000. The reason for that is because more people are streaming now and cutting cable. So
oh, so we get
just keep in mind that when you budget, you really want to
yeah,
over budget on expenses and under budget on revenue. So
what I do.
Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Cable is also spelled wrong at the bottom of the paragraph.
I'm not going to go through all the typos on the left-hand side. I think anybody could, and even the person who wrote these could probably look through it and see their own errors. It just was probably typed up quickly. Fines worksheet. What do people get fines for?
Traffic, yeah,
Traffic primarily.
in violation of the code.
Is there, okay. So we haven't budgeted in the past or even accounted for expenses under police fines, but starting next year we are. It's not that big a deal, just seems odd that we didn't do it, now we are. And then there's nothing under permit violation fines, which raises the question why we even have that there, but that's not that big a deal. Next page, interest income worksheet. So in 2022, the budget was for 3,000 and we collected 25,000. This year, we're almost already at 25,000 where we budgeted 30. And next year, we're down to 25 again. Seems like that could be higher if we've already collected 25. I don't know why it was only 3,000, 22 last year.
That was intentional. Go back to my notes, but
It's weird if you look on the middle columns there of showing past years. In 2021, we budgeted 25,000, only collected 4,700, and then we budgeted 3,000, went back to 24,000. So it doesn't. I mean, I don't need answers to that question. I'm sure there was a reason at the time, and I'm also guessing that because of the issues with QuickBooks and 2022, there's lots of things that will be odd.
yeah, I think that's a big part of our issue too, is that, Jack is dealing with some bad information.
Yeah. Understand. Grants. So every year we budget for $2,500, but we never collect any grants for $2,500 or anything else. Why are we budgeting anything for that if we never get any?
Skip.
If you don't know, we can move on. It's just
Yeah,
something to
I
look
don't know. I see that it's really under DP cycle.
at. Yeah.
Oh, I think
Perhaps.
because we weren't doing it.
Yeah.
So that's legit. That covers.
That's legit. None of my other questions are legit.
No, the 2,500.
Oh, it's legit. Oh, thank you. I had questions about the volunteer fire relief fund, but I eventually, as I went through, saw that it's an in and out, right? Whatever you get in, you get back out. building permits worksheet. So that's a really odd one because 2023, we budgeted 110, we collected 80, and next year it's budgeted for 20. And I have a feeling the 110 at the top, well, I don't even know, because underneath that, the other categories beneath it, 110 and 13, 10, 9, 17, 5. But then almost nothing is budgeted for any of those categories. Anyway, you can see the point. Under 2023 at the very bottom, building permit receipt expectation is 160,000 for this year. Next year it's 20,000. So that's another place where we can, I don't know what the reason for that is, but that might be another.
Yeah, well, we're sort of built out. There's no building permits coming, such like that. So once again, we really want to underestimate some income. So that's really just a safety measure right there.
If you have a feel for the building permits, I mean, obviously I wouldn't know anything about that. Maybe that.
We had a lot of discussion about that particular
Okay.
question.
Nothing on zoning permits or the fees and permits. Donations worksheet. What are donations? People donate to the township?
Every once in a while, it takes in some money.
God bless. Oh, okay, the last couple of years, people have donated to the police.
But that wouldn't go here.
And community day.
So this is accurate. We got a good bit more donations. This,
Somebody donated
that's not right.
to a healthy yard.
That's not right. There were some donations to the Healthy Yard program.
To buy the signs.
Oh,
That
nice.
is not right.
Okay, that's fine. Just seemed weird. Didn't know people could donate, but that's cool. All right, miscellaneous receipts and refunds. What's going on here? Because there's never been much, if any, expense here, and now there's 26,000 budgeted for next year.
Receipts.
Right, but there's never been any, so why are we expecting more?
Because we're going to build, we're having a cell tower is going to be built.
Oh, my God.
If that's an ongoing thing, I wonder if that should be a new category instead of miscellaneous.
Yeah, perhaps.
Other reimbursed expenses. First, I don't know, you probably don't know the answer to this. I just wonder why some things are in red on here and some other pages there's things in red, but
That has to do with the changes that we requested.
okay.
I also tell you that you see it in pink, that's kind of money out.
They just shoulder.
I guess that's a really hard one to budget for. Nothing was budgeted for this year. In the past, 2021, we've received $112,000. Sorry, yeah, $112,000. Year before that, $127,000. Last year, $63,000. This year, $11,000. I don't know what those are or how you budget for it, but if it must just be a general. You don't know what to expect. Sometimes you get them. Do you have any idea what goes into that category?
Since your engineering fees and our ethical fees and chargebacks.
Yeah, they're generally related to developers who pay the township expenses for engineering fees associated with development.
So it's for the escrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Essentially. So it's what they call a pass-through. So, but as development reduces, those reimbursements are going to be reduced, as well as your expense associated with it.
And are there any, do we have any sense of whether any of those are coming due next year? I guess not. More for it.
Don't know.
Again, with the building.
Right. On to expenses. Only 33 more pages to go.
Making my point.
Good. We didn't coordinate beforehand. Website expense. It's always been 5,000. Now it's 2,000.
Yes. We're going to do more of that in-house.
And on the first line, auditing service. We've always paid to have auditors, other than we three elected auditors. Just wonder why there's nothing budgeted or expended for that list.
They're John Granger's numbers. And so we're still trying to
Definitely
correct.
two things in the wrong bucket.
If you knew, you wouldn't see that there.
It doesn't mean it wasn't, we didn't spend the money, it's probably just was in the wrong bucket.
Okay. And, yeah, and
But we did.
But we didn't get it
We
moved into
didn't
this
get it
bucket.
into the right
Yeah.
budget for our budget. Okay.
And there's nothing else on this page that shows where it would have been. I mean, there's no other big 25,000, so who knows, maybe it was a salary, who knows, but, okay, that makes sense. Board of Supervisor worksheet. Your salaries. So I see in 2024, for next year, you're budgeting $1 more. Did you guys give yourself a raise of $1?
You got a raise.
I got a raise.
And the year after that, another $1? Just kidding. I appreciate all you guys do for so little reward. Salary and benefits. I guess we established earlier that this is specifically the township manager. Is that
Correct.
fair?
Well, the top line is, yeah.
Well, even underneath that, it's different benefits.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm guessing that those, but it is odd, you guys should take a look at this. There's nothing budgeted for benefits for this position for the next 3 years. I'm guessing that there will be,
Could match the contract.
right? Unless she doesn't need any benefits, which would be awesome.
Pretty sure she does.
Pretty sure she does. Secretary salary and benefits.
For 2 full-time positions.
Okay.
and 1 part-time.
So it's already 97,000 for this year, but you're only, oh, not only, sorry, backwards. It's now 142,000 for next year. You understand my question?
Would it have something to do with not paying people this year who we're going to pay next year?
Yeah, the budgeted amount for this year was 60, 100, a little under 140,000, and it's only at 97 so far. Was there a period where nobody was one of those positions?
Oh, yeah.
Well, now Granger's in the previous page.
Yeah, Christina was here the whole last year.
Well, something to look at. That either, and it's to be bigger next year when we're spending at a rate considerably below that, unless there's, I don't know, deferred spending or something.
No, we kept
Jason
saying that we
and
don't know.
Christina.
He's not in this
Okay.
spot.
And again, there's nothing budgeted for the next 3 years for either dental insurance or FICA taxes. I'm sorry. There are for FICA, not for dental insurance. It's not that big a deal. On to police worksheet. Really hard to read. 'Cause this one's so much smaller, but maybe you can help me out here.
Yeah, there is another tab that has all the healthcare.
On the-
That's why we're.
On the secretary or the police?
For every. What's the tab?
Let's go to page 27.
Because that went up something like $500.
Oh, under healthcare expense worksheet, it's all in there. Okay.
guess that's a misnomer on the title.
Yeah. Well, okay. That's weird. I'd suggest you keep them where they were, but it's up to you. Police workshop. Can somebody help me out here? Under police secretary, I circled it, but because I had a bigger screen at home than I do here. But for this year, the budget was for 75,000. And what's the amount in blue that we have spent? Is that 58? Second blue line down under this year,
56,100.
56?
Yep.
Again, that seems low considering it goes through November 13th. Also seems like a really good salary. But that's a personal issue. I'm not gonna. But I think it's worth looking at why that position is only 58,000 so far this year. It's on track to be much less than the budgeted amount, but next year's budgeted amount is more than this year. Yeah, but do you understand, Dana? So it's budgeted.
Yeah, it should show more.
Her bump was budgeted,
Bump was
but
at 20.
It was at the
It was at 21.
but the bump is budgeted, but the actual isn't.
I understand.
Okay. Good for Weber for keeping the overtime number down. Police supplies. Budget for 2,500 and 17,000 has been spent. Next year's budgeted for 20. Is there something new there that hasn't been there in the past?
Yes, there's going to be a need for vests and cameras, body cameras.
I thought there was a donation, a grant essentially to cover those things. Is that
When
another grant tied up in?
Not sure.
No,
What
it's
is-
not. It's not. No.
I don't think that's part of it.
And this is minor, but on the right-hand side, the telephone expense budgeted 8,000, we've only spent 2,500. It's budgeted again for 8,000 next year. Probably take that down. And same with computer and copier expense. There's nothing in there for any of these expenses for the last 3 years, so it's hard to tell what the pattern is. Maybe these low numbers are.
I believe I'd asked about that, and was told that there was some things that everything
Wasn't broken
captured,
out, yeah.
So they didn't want to take from that budget
Okay.
until it was verified.
Public Works, not much on this one, but on the right-hand side, small tools and telephones, there's nothing in the budget for next year, where it's been budgeted every year up till now. You see those gaps? So then to the big healthcare expense worksheet. The amount budgeted was 440,000. So far, it's only been 322,000. But the amount budgeted for next year is going up to 535,000.
Yeah, just there was just a big bump in healthcare expense, and I'd been shop that to see if we could get something on the private market that would be more competitive. It's not coming up.
The 25% increase.
Yeah, I know. I screamed at that first time I saw it.
But it's odd that it's so low to date, only 322,000. Seems like that should be higher, or else next year's budget should be lower. Just something to look at as to why it's so low. Maybe there's a rule issue or it's posting. But if that 322 is accurate, what's been spent so far, that would suggest that's after, let's just say, for ease of use, 10 months worth. It's going to be another 32 plus 32, 64. It's going to come under 400.
Yeah, I understand. It may be when the billing comes in. So maybe this is as of September 30th. So the next 3 months will come in December. Okay.
Legal fees. I'm not even gonna ask what the 120,000 was spent on this year, twice the budget, but I guess I'll just ask, do you expect it to come back down again to 60 for?
Yes, very much so.
Dave, charges less if you are efficient.
Thank you, Dave.
They,
Can we get that?
Still good.
Engineering fees. The budget item this year was 40,000. The amount spent was almost 300,000. And next year it's budgeted at 200. Why was it so over budget this year, and why is it going up so much for the next 3 years?
We don't spend
no, they're
No.
not, no, they're not.
Well, right. Yeah, that number is still questionable, but we're budgeting, so it's not like,
I think that's one of Jackie's first things with what's going on with this. What are we getting for it? So,
the 295 from last year is a true number,
For this year?
but for 23, yes, correct.
Those fees are basically raising. They're not,
correct.
they don't add to this. We have a very clear estimate.
Understand? Sure, oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think we're careful about allowing them to do whatever they want to do.
Oh,
Not, it's not where they want to do.
Dana.
I'm saying we're just being more cautious about this is parameters away.
But I don't think
They're-
they've been off on their own. I don't think they've been doing whatever they want
Well,
to
I
do.
think they've had directives we're outside the scope of our budget.
That's different than attributing something to them.
Appreciate that.
So you feel these numbers are right, or that you're gonna look into them? The 295 for this year and the 200 for next year?
I believe 295 this year is correct. Yes. Next year's projection.
I think a lot of the big projects are done too, as far as for the roads.
Talked about how built out.
Let's let the
Well,
person at the podium
Well, I'll
speak,
take
please.
Tom's point. That's,
Everybody else is saying.
Well, you know, Carl's like difficult. You know, so let's,
You think he's difficult?
Tom, you should take that as a compliment, but I'll ask Tom's question for him. So in the other categories, you said you expected less building next year. So if building is going to be less, maybe the 200,000 for next year should be less too. Understand?
should be, yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we're not going to do Cheney Lane or St. Andrews Lane, which are big projects requiring engineering services.
Okay.
We have a lot of stormwater projects.
Okay. I don't know what that means, but thank you. And for some reason, this page and the next page, utilities printed out twice. Maybe it wasn't utilities, but there's a couple of pages printed out twice. I don't know if that's my printer or what. Township utilities worksheet. There's nothing budgeted for this year, but there's $13,000 in expenses, and that's what's budgeted for the next year, 3 years. Any idea why it was not budgeted or expended in the past 3 years? And the overall budget, and the same at the bottom, what are, I should ask the question separately, but let's just start at the top. The township electrical, there's nothing budgeted, but we spent 13,000.
Yes, that's correct.
But what is that? Why didn't we have electric expense in the past, and now we do?
Part of John Granger's budget, I don't have an answer for you.
Okay.
Just looks like that
Well,
one is missing in the budget. There's 2 rows with
Maybe-
So it was probably budgeted in some other category? Must have been, because
Could be.
they always
So I
elect.
have the same question here.
And then on that same page, as you go down, heating fuel, 5,500 was budgeted. We spent 18,000. And there's nothing budgeted for 25 or 26, which we're not concerned with. It's just weird that you didn't plug some numbers in there. And the big ones down at the bottom, nothing was budgeted for water and fire hydrants, but we've spent 31,000. What do you spend? What's an expense for water
Yes.
and fire hydrants?
Yeah, it's like 3 fire hydrants. They charge us that. Yeah.
Who's they?
Water company, Aqua.
Even if we don't use them? Or
Correct.
maybe we did. Okay, we're almost done. Love. Custodial worksheet. Like same thing, nothing was in there, nothing was budgeted for a cleaning service, but we spent 12,000, and that's what's budgeted for the next 3 years. Did we not do cleaning service before, or was it in some of, it was somewhere else in the budget? And again, same thing, building code inspector. There was nothing budgeted, but there's 54,000, 55,000? Again, it's hard to read. 30, 34? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Randy.
I think this includes,
It's outside contracted services, Jim, might be a different category.
I think you may be right, Sarah, that these first two categories combined, building code inspector fees was 0 budgeted, code clerk wages was 72,000. And if you combine the two expenses, the one that wasn't budgeted and the one that was, it comes to around 73,000. That said, it raises the question of why are those two numbers way higher in 2024? They're 48,000 higher, about 60% higher next year than they were this year. And then the code clerk FICA tax wasn't broken out before. Are we doing anything new with code inspectors or code clerk personnel?
No, it's been here 20 years. We'll continue.
So something's wrong there. It's gone from,
So are you referring to Jason?
These are clerk.
so far the salary expense has been 74,000, which is above the entire year's budget. And next year we're budgeting 120,000.
it's gonna have more hours next year.
So a lot more
He's
hours.
he's still a
He
salary.
wasn't getting a full salary because of.
He had a designated salary, which is what should be reflected here.
What's the difference between building code inspector fees and code clerk wages?
The fees that the building inspector charges. Yeah, good point. Yeah,
It's on our fee schedule that we adopt at the reorganization meeting every year, what the inspection fees are for certain things, generators, whatever. And so that is the fee that's in our code that says if you're going to build one of these, we're going to inspect it for this much money. Your second item, code clerk wages, is who's getting paid to process all of that.
Do we charge, I'm not familiar with how this works. Do we charge the resident for those fees?
I think it will depend on how the resident is contracting for the work. If if they have a contractor doing the work, it might go through the contractor than just being written by the resident.
I think that's something that Jackie talked about looking at this year too,
the fees.
making sure we were covering.
Does then the contractor reimburse the township?
But they don't always cover the actual costs. And so that is something that our fee structure is adjusted to cover all the costs.
Okay.
I don't think we've seen an analysis of that, so I'm not sure we'll have it before the reorganization.
Under the planning and codification worksheet. Under codification, always budgeted $1,000 this year. Up till now, there was nothing in there. This year it's 9,000 and we're budgeting 10, then 11, then 12. Zoning officer was always budgeted at this year was budgeted at 8,000, the expense was 87,000. And nothing was budgeted for regional planning or Unilogic, but there's been 8,000 expenses there. So in other words, the total budget for this was supposed to be 9,000, and we've spent over $100,000. What's up with that?
Does anybody know what the big codification expense was?
And it's budgeted for next year to stay at that level. And
I
then
know.
some.
It's every year,
What's Tracy's now?
9,000. And that is what it is when we have new ordinances. Usually every 6 months, I send them in all the new ones and they have to update it. So when they get those ordinances in, they start working on it to update all to our code. And that's what that is.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. So that's the 9,000, but what's the next line, the zoning officer, where the budget was for 8,000, but we spent 88,000? And next year it's for 95,000.
So this is the officer's salary.
That's what
Yeah.
happened my notes here. I don't know if that's true.
So the,
So are we bringing the zoning officer in-house? It's contracted services.
That allocated.
I mean,
Yeah,
I,
it would be nice if we had Jackie, because she has all the answers to this.
and I don't want to, but I can sit with Jackie and ask her these questions too, which I don't know if I said this in the beginning. She offered to sit with me, and then this came up, and I said, well, we don't need to ask the same questions twice. So I said, I just wait and do it.
I'll take advantage of it.
Okay. It's just, if that zoning officer 88,000 that we spent this year was somewhere else, it's not clear where that expense was somewhere else in here. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, but I didn't see anywhere where that was.
Right.
Almost finished. I said that. Solid waste disposal printed out twice. Highway maintenance. We budgeted 50,000. We spent 7 or 8. And gravel roads, we budgeted 50 and spent, what is that, 60? And paved road maintenance, we budgeted 60 and spent 20. Some really weird numbers there. And the budget items for next year have dropped, but not nearly by as much as, well, the first one's snow removal, so that makes sense. Still seems high to budget 40,000, but makes sense.
They're for outside contractors that we have to hire because we don't have enough plows and such to do all the roads in a timely fashion, so.
Well, the snow removal, as I say, makes sense. We budgeted 50, there was no snow, so we only
Yeah.
spent 8,000. Next year, you're budgeting 40, probably conservative in the sense of it should be less than that at current rates, but I understand why you're budgeting. But then the maintenance for gravel roads, paved roads, why did we spend so much less this year?
I can't answer that.
Gravel roads, we budgeted 50, spent 16. Next year, it's budgeted for 40 again. Paved roads, it was budgeted for 60, we spent 20, and next year the budget is 20. So kind of odd, but
I'd like to know the answer.
oh, thank you.
There's a very
I yield my time.
cloudy line between whether you charge general fund or road repair. And I don't know who makes the decision of where they go, but I think somebody in the office, today's the day will do general fund, the day they will do
Well,
roads.
it's the kind of thing that Bob, when he goes back and looks at 2022, probably will see that they may have been swapped back and forth between 2 different accounts. Hopefully there'll be some consistency going forward. Thanks, John. Boards and commissions worksheet. So this year, there was nothing budgeted at all, and next year we're budgeting 14,000.
Correct.
What's CHB?
Zoning hearing board?
So have we never spent any before?
We never assigned a budget to our community.
It seems,
Well, we didn't budget.
It's, it's
In
not
these,
that we-
That's why there's nothing there.
But
Pull for it.
this should be much easier next year because hopefully there'll be some consistency. You're creating a lot of new categories, eliminating some, and
Yep.
it's all in one fell swoop, swell swoop. And so next year, it'll make more sense that things are being done consistently.
Yes.
Parks and Playground was budgeted 500, we spent 4,200. Not that big a deal, but we're budgeting 4,200 going forward. Is there something new that we're doing regularly under Parks?
I think we didn't maintain the playing fields this year. So there may be additional expenses in 2024.
And going forward, like that would be a consistent maintenance expense. Contributions worksheet. We budgeted $1,000 and spent $200,000. And it's budgeted for 37,000 next year and 140,000 after that. What are these contributions?
For a fire truck. That was,
What's that?
that was voted on.
Okay, so
Long ago.
we spent 200 this year. We're budgeting 37 next year and 140 the year after that.
Yeah, realizing that we're $1 million shortfall this year, thereabouts. We thought it prudent to just hold back on contributions.
I believe 37 is
What they asked for.
We agreed to that, and
Insurance. We budgeted 47,000 for workers' comp, but it only costs 12,000. And we're budgeting 15 for next year. So any idea why workers' comp went from 47, budgeted for 47, but we only spent 12? It's a good thing. Doesn't need really a lot of attention. It's just pretty weird unless there's a,
Once again, that might be something that become due.
it could be, but next year's only budgeted 15. So it seems like maybe that is an expectation. Same with public officials, the number's much less, but next year it's budgeted for less. Then you get to insurance, casualty and surety. It's gone from 19,000 expense this year to a budget of 195,000. That's really weird. Next one where, on the next, oh yeah. Well, anyway, do you have any idea why the casualty and surety has gone from not being budgeted, but being a $19,000 expense to a $195,000 budget item?
Don't know.
Sure you'll find out. Pension is going from 46,000 this year to 141,000 next year.
Municipal obligation.
Did they change did somebody change that requirement? Did that come down on you guys
Yes.
from above?
It's come from the state, right?
Yeah. So,
And is that related to the 7% that was talked about in the very beginning?
No.
so there's required, pension plan is required contribution. Township must make every year. It's calculated by an actuary depending upon salaries, the number of employees in the plan, and how well the plan did in investments, but they're always a year behind. So stock market was up 2 years ago, then the MMO was less because you've got more assets in the plan. Then if the stock market goes down, your MMO is going to be higher because now you're going to make up the difference in the loss of value. So it's always
But if the market goes down 1 year, do people,
if it goes down, then you have to, a certain amount that you have to fund the plan every year. So if the market goes down, now your MMO, minimum municipal obligation, goes up. Right? So it's a seesaw.
Archaic
So it's a defined benefit plan.
Benefit.
Yes, yeah.
Except for in government.
Debt services worksheet. Budgeted at 2,400. Spent 13,000. That was for interest on, these are, each of these is a different note, but the budgeting and the actual are just so out of line. Like, so the first one, we budgeted 2,000, we spent 13,000. The next one, we budgeted 39,000 and spent nothing.
I believe we did look at the amortization schedule, and this was right.
And what?
This was correct.
Yes, John had combined some of the bonds and shut the principal payments off for this year. We'll see them later, how astronomical they are. We still
Well,
haven't
not for this
covered-
year.
We haven't covered the bonds for this, but we already got a bill for it, so that's where we're at.
But there's almost, you're saying it was bumped up, but there's no expense in 2023 for any of these except the first one. But the total budget amount is 1.4 million.
Well, you can look at second from the bottom.
Yeah.
That one there went from 600 or 687 to 701,000.
We don't want to fund that. With bond.
But those are budgeted amounts. The amount spent is 13,000 against 1.4 million budgeted. I hope we don't still owe those.
I think you're looking at the actual.
The actual amount spent in these, on these 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 notes, the amount spent this year is 13,000, right? Yeah. Well, but you see in the blue lines, right? It's just 14,000. So that's the budgeted amount, Dana. The 1.4 is the budgeted amount. Budget amount is 1.4 million. The amount spent is 13,000. I hope not. I mean, I hope it is, but it can't be. They're expecting interest about 1.4 million. And West Vincent Community Day, we budgeted 10,000 every year. There's nothing in there. Actually, maybe it's in the wrong place. Yeah, it is. The 2,000 for this year is under 2024. That should be under 2023. See what I'm saying?
Yep.
And last year, the expense was 15,000. This year was 2,000.
It was offset. Some sponsorship, but a lot less money.
Okay. Very cool.
Transaction.
And then the totals pages, I'm sure they're fine. I didn't add them up. John probably did. But it's just weird that in the fourth column, it says as of January 2nd, 2023, actual. Maybe that's the budget. That must be the budget totals, not the actual. But then it says year-to-date actual. Yeah, there's something way off here.
Mine says last revised 11/13.
Yeah, it says,
Right. If we're gonna hear the start here, just the actual.
so it says, again, in the column, on the black line, it says for the year 2023. Above that, it says as of January 2nd, 2023, actual. So that, obviously, there's something wrong there.
Well, it could be that was the fund balance, not a receipt total.
But these aren't fund balances. This is the receipt amount. So I think that the title's just wrong. It should say, to the right of that, it says year-to-date actual. I think that's in the wrong place. That should be over 2023. And where it says year-to-date actual, that should say budgeted for 2024, because obviously the year-to-date actual for 2024 is 0. The next page is right. The headers on the expenditures page are correct. They're wrong on the receipt totals page. questions.
Thank you. Anyone?
I have a question for you. All of those numbers where you said, well, here's a $30,000 discrepancy, or this is a place you could, did you happen to calculate if you added up all those 12,000 and 15,000?
In some cases, I did.
Do you have a sense of how much it brings our deficit down?
Well, no, because unless you guys say, yes, that should change to blah, 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 there's no way to know. I mean, there's not much in here that's real obvious that should be, that we're over exaggerating the budgeted number. A couple of things there were that I mentioned, but not $1 million worth. It's not clear to me. Now, I don't know what we have in savings. John could tell us. I know we've had surpluses in the past. There's stuff to draw from, and presumably that's what you're counting on. You don't generally budget to spend money that you don't have or don't expect to get. So no, I can't help with that here until you make the changes. And I'm available if you ever want to.
Sure. Thank you. You have more questions than that?
More questions? I don't have a question. A question for Dave. Is there a rule of thumb of what the reserve balance should be for West Township?
Well, I'm not an accountant, but I think generally speaking, I've heard 11%.
I've heard 25 or 30%.
Okay, so
That there should be there's the reserve balance. This line ignores that altogether. There's a minus 1,000,001 in there, which can't be, and then it goes down in 2024 to 310,000, which I think it used to be 30% of revenue, which is like 5 million. So, and if you don't have that, you borrow the money to cover it. Well, you could borrow the money, but in further years when it's negative, you've had to borrow the money, and when you borrow money, it's revenue. It can't be that way, can it? You know that we're gonna have like a minus $1 million
Well,
reserve.
well, it's not a real minus $1 million. It's in the yearly budget, so it's gonna draw from reserves, pull it out of the bank, essentially.
Well,
You're spending out of
the
the,
reserves are gone. Now you're in the
now,
minus.
you can't go, you
You
can't,
can't, but this
you can't.
says you can. This is what they're doing.
Well, it's projecting forward. It's projecting forward, and if you keep going on this path, that's what's gonna happen.
If you go on this path, it's devastating. And I seem to remember looking down the expenditures. Was the principal payment over $1 million on some notes next year?
That's what it looks like, yes.
Pardon?
Yes, yes.
And shouldn't it only be 400,000? I mean, should you pick up 800? You have this.
John, I had that same question myself. I questioned Jackie about it. We've got the amortization table, and that's the way it turned out. So far,
Impossible.
Share.
yeah, I agree with you too.
But, back to one other point, this quality of work here leaves something to be desired.
Talk about this. Take a look back last year and compare the two.
But
And compare the two from last year to this
I think it was better last year.
Well,
Okay.
we liked the result better, but I don't know if it was accurate. Wide
It's
up,
accurate.
nice and
Last
pretty.
year, you projected a profit of 57,000 or 54,000, one or the other, in the general fund, and right now you're ahead at 300,000, so you might get close to that. It may have been a realistic budget that we wound up with, and I know the capital expenditures were much closer, if not exactly. But when two notes were combined last year, and Mark Thompson wrote a letter in March saying, I can't identify what's going on anymore. So then somebody says, okay, well, we'll put the $500,000 in open space. And nobody tried. You used to pay, the township paid a third of the principal, and the open space paid 2/3 or something.
Hi, Julia Brendel, 2472 Flowing Springs Road. So I just have a couple of comments. Clearly, when you look at the budget and when you look at our expenses for 2023 and how much was budgeted for 2023, remember what was budgeted for 2023 and 2022 were John Granger's numbers, and he clearly under budgeted things so that it looked like we were doing better than we were, is my opinion and what I see. And that's just math. That's addition and subtraction. I don't know anything about the interest that we're paying on all the notes that we have and everything like that. And I will say, pardon my French, it sucks if that's the situation that we're in. But what that means is you've got to make cuts in other places. You got to figure out where you can save money. That's what happens when you don't have the money that you need to pay your bills. It's that simple. So I really think the first thing that we have to do is we have to get our books straightened out from 2022, get the real numbers, then they can move, that can flow into 2023. We can really see what's going on. And then moving forward, never let what happened over the last couple of years happen again.
Agreed.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not a financial expert. It's not a fancy I've ever had. But I have had to present a few multi-million-dollar budgets in my day and be responsible for them. And I've had to endure countless meetings like this where it's like I would really rather be in a dentist chair getting drilled without Novocaine. But I'm going to just say one thing. I'm absolutely stupefied by how screwed up stuff is. If I ever would have went into a meeting with this level of preparedness, I'd never walk out. They'd have bled me to death before I hit the door. It's appalling how screwed up stuff is. I mean, you're looking at stuff magnitudes of 10. Budget 1,000, spend 100,000, and as we used to say, the GI salute. Well, hell, I don't know where it went. Man, we are so out of control with this. It screams mismanagement to the end. You guys may or may not have been in charge at the point in time, but you're here now. And if we don't get it straightened out, it's unbelievable. I'm just absolutely blown away sitting here listening to this going like, man, this can't be actually real, that it's this bollock stuff. And I know we got, scapegoat A and scapegoat B, but, and then we're going to, and there's some valid points like, well, we got a new system and we're going to redo this. So looking forward to this, the next time some new dude comes in, he's going to want to change it all up to whatever system he's got concocted. There's got to be a standard system. Like I said, it was pretty cut and dry in all the industries I worked in, where it was like, well, this is how you do this. This is the procedure. No procedure here to follow. We just make it up every year as we go along, and each new dude that comes in just gets to keep the books however the hell he wants. That can't be right. I got to do a better job.
Jay?
Yeah, I'm sure we all want more consistency going forward. I like the way it's being broken out going forward with more categories and more breakout to the specific categories instead of things being lumped into one place, spreading it over more categories. As much detail as that takes, or much extra work probably that it takes. The two people sitting in the front row here and I are the three elected auditors, and this is a little bit of CYA, but we reached out so many times to John Granger in particular, not only, to ask to see the books, to advise on the budget, to look at the audit before it was released. We were rebuffed every time. At one point, John Granger said, "No, you can't see it because then if there was something wrong, you might be held liable." And we rejected that, but in retrospect, I'm glad he said it because I would now want to be held responsible for those numbers. But I'll make the same offer that we made, I think 2 or 3 years ago, Sarah, you may remember. I don't know how these things work, but it seems like we could have a financial advisory board of some sort, an ad hoc or new committee, whatever, to go over these numbers instead of, John's questions during the meeting, have them addressed during the month beforehand. Don't give us any weight or, official ability to spend money or make money or whatever. But there's been so many questions, and John, God bless him, he comes up here and asks so many questions over the years and gets really bad answers from John in particular, who's the one who was shepherding all this stuff. And I don't know much about Jackie. I don't have anything negative or positive to say about her. I appreciate that she wants to do this and do it right. But I'll speak for myself only that if you wanted to put together some sort of advisory board for finances, I'm sure you wouldn't have a hard time getting a handful of people who would be happy to spend an hour or two a month.
Thank you, we'll take that under advisement. Sounds like a good idea.
I'd like to ask a question, Dave, because this is something that I remember when you started doing that, and we often got a response from John Granger couldn't, legally could not, because we had an outside accounting firm, could not mention or do that. So, Dave, is there anything we should do that? Because they're elected, but we have, it is treason. Okay, so like where's the wiggle room in that they can look at it?
Well,
It has to be an ad hoc.
the paid auditors take over. But I don't know that's what you're talking about.
No, they don't want to.
You're talking about just
This is
an
don't wanna give up
advisory,
our-
and that's, I don't see any reason why you couldn't. They're not acting.
the advisory
Ad hoc.
committee ad hoc
Yes.
is a nice idea. Barry will remember that one came up about 10 years ago, looking at what Easttown or somebody on the main line was doing for different, yeah, things.
Bailed them out. I mean, they changed it from $6 million. Well, $3 million deficit, they were gonna have $3 million positive on it, and kind of things different, but that happened.
My recollection, Jamie, of why you guys couldn't see it was that we couldn't provide it exclusively to the elected auditors. If we made it available to any of the residents, we needed to make it available to everybody. And I believe that was John's objection, was while it was a draft, was not a time to put it out to the general public.
I know Mark always substantiated that, so that's really,
And
where's the legal line?
that's fine. I don't care about the past. I'm just offering going forward.
What's legal?
Well,
Action.
well, it all depends on what they're going to do.
They wanted to look
Ongoing finances, ongoing finances of the township.
mostly it was the draft audit was
Well, that was one specific issue, but I'm not talking now about the audit, the elected auditors. I'm talking about if we formed an ad hoc committee to help put together the budget, to ask these questions, so we're not taking up an hour and a half of the residents' time. And to try to understand, to make sure, I mean, if we had seen a month-by-month thing, which we did, but in very odd forms, as John kept pointing out, and to look at these things beforehand, all those questions I just had would be easily answered because everything would have been in categories that we could have understood what they were without having to ask all these questions.
Well, and previously, like you said, things weren't broken down, and kept changing, John kept changing the accounting method, which made it very hard to follow along. So, we're trying very hard to get back to cash accounting, obvious, breaking it out. So, I think next year will be a completely different thing, but I'd like to feel like we were in a better place right now.
And coming up with realistic numbers rather than something that just makes it look good.
Right. Well, I think by breaking it down and opening it up, we can actually see what's going. There's transparency here, which we didn't have before.
Yeah, I think the question's a good one. Like, again, this, no offense to Jackie, I don't even know what her background is in terms of accounting. But there's no reason we couldn't get another, I'm sorry to even say his name, because it's, but there's no reason that we can't have another person come in who really isn't qualified, who starts making stuff up and plugging stuff in their own places. The control is important to have oversight, and you guys may not be financial people, and again, not you, but supervisors come in with all kinds of expertise. It might not be financial, and you're eventually responsible for it, but you might, I mean, numbers are confusing. There's people who look at those numbers and it just doesn't make any sense. So that's where I think people who have some sort of financial background would be an asset to look at the numbers and make sure that they're tracking correctly. I don't think these problems would have happened if that had been the case in the past. Maybe Jackie won't, after a year or two of it, we may say, look, Jackie's doing everything fine. We don't need to meet as often. But
One more comment. I have reached out to Jackie at one time on Bernie's suggestion. I contact her after the meeting, and I get somewhat kind of a curt, nasty response like, "I'm too busy. You're wrong. You're wrong. Wrong." She said to me, "You don't understand financial statements," and on and on and on. And it was hostile, if not. Uh,
Carl, in an effort to be helpful, the preliminary budget would be nice if what was presented was fleshed out a little better before it got to us. We all acknowledge it. So, but the budget is a projection tool. It's required by the end of the year by statute. There's no way around that. You must have this budget completed by the end of the year. There's no way out of that. No excuse. But it must be amended, and it's a projection tool. It would be nice going forward if we could have a township policy where the budget was finalized by the end of October or the first meeting in November. This shouldn't ever be in this position. Yeah, we should not be one meeting away and not even have the final draft looking for an edit error, which is, in my time, that's what we did. Our budgets were adopted and ready to go, but the work was long done. There may have been a discussion of, well, revenues have changed at the end of the year. Okay, we're going to modify this projected expense. But 98% of the work was done by the end of October, beginning of November. I know things are a little different now, but the structure is the same. The categories haven't changed much, like a few additional line items, but it's pretty straightforward. We'll go back to that. And then the ad hoc part, I get the interest, but if we're open every meeting, if it's all out in the open, we have this ongoing dialogue and everything's up to date. What they're asking about is no longer an issue. John comes to meetings and he asks those questions, but he does get a lot of pushback in the last several years. It didn't used to be that way. We never had that problem. None of you were here, friend, that back in the past. That was not an issue. Never a problem. People ask questions. They got an answer. The manager gave an answer. I gave an answer. My cohorts gave answers. It was done. Having a complete understanding of this really helpful to the public, and confidence would be really bolstered if we can move forward from now. A statement from the board or policy from the board, yeah, we're going to get ahead of this ball, so we're never in this position again, because we should never be here. But one of the things maybe perhaps we could ameliorate this is we don't know what that shortfall is. We really don't know what that is, because this preliminary budget is really dirty. It's really messy and dirty. So none of the numbers Jamie just went through are valid. That whole exercise was demonstrative of how poorly created this document was. It should not have been released to the public. That's not what we should be seeing in this meeting. That document should have been to the three of you in September. That was the first draft, or what should have been the first draft that you saw. That's how far back we're going. Now we're 3 months behind and 1 week left. So I don't know what else the manager has on her plate, but this needs to be it, because you don't have an extension opportunity. This is it. You can't punt this. change it, but adopt it. Get all of that work done, please. It's very important. This is why I think it'd be a really good idea if the township has a treasurer who's not the manager. The treasurer can take care of the books, the monthly book work, not the manager, because the manager has a lot on her plate, his plate. They should be focused on that. Looking over budget, looking over money, but there should be a bookkeeper, treasurer doing the main part. Okay?
Thank you. Dave, what is our jeopardy if we don't have a budget on 7/31?
Well, I've never had that question before. So, I would look and see, I mean, you have the opportunity to adopt it in December and then in January. So it's not the end of the road. If you want to change it in January, you can, because it's an election. You have the ability in January to change it. So you still have, you have the ability to manage it this year.
Did that 4 years ago in election year. But my recollection then is that it was limited to a certain number of line items where you would transfer your funds or something that you can't go in and correct
The
every
law,
segment.
as I recall,
Oh, yeah, not more than 25%. Some
25% in some categories and not more than 10% overall. I think that's the numbers.
Thanks, Mike.
We just look at penalties and it's the statute. That's it, like with the pay review. It's not an option, it's the statute, it's not a penalty. It's violent.
Well, it means
That's-
we
that's
wouldn't
not-
have,
Thank you.
it means we wouldn't have money to spend, right?
Right.
Hey, good evening.
I-
I'm a newcomer. My name is John Bowen. I live at 1972 St. Matthews. You probably passed my vineyard many times. You know, I'm a CPA and I served as chairman of the audit committee for a Maryland FDIC bank for 13 years. And I'm kind of appalled by the governance which is going on here. I would never have approved, I think at the November 20th meeting, am I correct? The preliminary budget was approved as submitted?
Prove that.
Okay, so whatever, it was approved, which never should have been approved. I've never seen such a poor budget in my entire life. So I think the highest priority for the township is to hire a treasurer. You know, there's separation of duties, conflict of interest that occur if you don't have a treasurer and a manager. So, you know, to answer your question about how can we make sure this doesn't happen again, you really need a treasurer. So I think the treasurer is the most important priority, and I think it's even a higher priority than signing the contract for the township manager. And the last question I have is on funding of the deficit. What are the options for that? Now, I don't need Jackie to tell me that, but you as commissioners or supervisors should be able to discuss the funding options for these deficits and to recommend cuts in budgets to, you know, balance revenues and expenses.
Well, borrowing one area.
Who's going to lend it to us?
We'll have to see. Once the audit is complete, which we're hoping is going to be done, and by the end of the year, not going into January, we'll be able to discern whether we're capable of getting the bond. So that would be our first.
Well, you know, the bond market is very expensive right now. I mean, interest rates for a bond issue would probably, you know, 8 or 9 or 10%. But I too would volunteer for this ad hoc committee that if it gets off the ground. So that's all.
Thank you, sir.
John, just ask you a question here. So you had sent in a resume to the township for a treasurer position.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you expecting
I-
Tell me.
Well, so, you know, I'm ready, willing, and able to help. You know, it's the number one priority for the township.
Yeah, of course, yeah. That's why.
And, you know, I'd be glad to have a conversation about that. I'm looking at other options, so you really probably need to, you know, move pretty quickly on it.
Was
but-
your phone number with the resume?
Yeah,
Okay, so that we can contact you.
and you can share that with other members of the Board of Supervisors. But, yeah, and I can also share that information. Yeah,
All right, thank you.
sure.
Hi. So given I'm 17, I'd first like to see if I can make questions and comments. If
Sure.
that's all right. All right. So I'm Rebecca Sheehan. Firstly, are there any like clauses or procedures in the prospective manager or treasurer contract, whether it's separate or combined, that can make sure that like this budget does not degrade to the point that it has, and that like because I hear John Granger did this, John Granger did that, we cannot be sure that Jackie did not do this, Jackie did not do that. So is there something to prevent that from happening in the future?
I think our diligence, our ownership of this, certainly have learned a lot tonight of our negligence. And so therefore going further on this issue, that's where it starts and stops.
Second of all, I hear a lot of like the budget for this is in another section or it's found somewhere else. Like, why cannot that be found and like put in the proper section so we can see it as according to the budget?
I think that's why it took so long to get to the place where we are, which still is not adequate because Jack has been chasing all of the years and trying to verify.
Yes,
Say that's
yeah,
accurate?
and it's not like, we've been sitting still since back in July. This process really did start back then, trying to track down, as Jackie said previously, 7 different bookkeepers in the course of 1 year. And everybody did things differently. And we're trying to uncover all these things. So it's, when you go in this haystack, go to the next haystack, it's the same thing. So, yeah, we've learned a lot. We have a lot more to learn and a lot more work to do.
Thirdly, under the contributions tab, Euclid, Kimberton, and Ludwig stations are all included. However, in the receipts, it's only Kimberton, Ridge, and Ludwig's. But then in expenditures, it's only Kimberton and Ludwig's. So should Ridge and Euclid be included everywhere? Because if not, then why are there the disparities?
I don't have an answer for that. So,
How much it contributes to our
And then also back to the how the different sections are in different places and how salaries and expenses are listed in groups and then later itemized. Are we able to like put those in a singular place or like just please choose a pattern or consistency so that we can find those things in places? And then I also hear that like the $1 million deficit. So what's the plan to counter that, or like when will a plan be made? And does this mean like taxes will go up?
well, sure, go ahead. Yeah, thank
We
you.
have $11 million in the bank, and John Granger moved it around in 7 other funds because I think your reserve can only be a third of your receipts. So it's there. If we have, there's $11 million. We're going to spend $5 million next year. Overspend by, if it says $1 million, we have years to go before we eat up all that debt. But it's not clear from the way we got financial statements that happens.
Well, you don't see those other funds there because they're not being presented.
And then lastly, every good graph enjoyer likes pictures and stuff, but given the budget is in the state it is in, how much time was spent putting those pretty pictures in?
Oh, I'm in agreement with you, absolutely.
I at first I hated them and I thought, well, at least it
your
lot
time.
of time was put into them, though.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Larry, you next? Tommy?
I've heard some suggestions here which would sound, like they're pretty much on target. Maybe we need to have an actual treasurer be in charge of the bookkeeping stuff. That's great. I'm sure they're going to enjoy their job working for free. Oh, wait a minute, we're going to have to pay them. So, what's that mean? Well, I wasn't even going to go for the numbers. I was just going to go for
The fact
So,
that that in the budget.
the salary you're the salary you're proposing for the supervisor, the manager. Now their workload is obviously diminished. Ergo, I do believe their salary ought to be diminished. Not as responsible for all these different things, lesser pay. And the other thing, my God, well, how are we going to pay for this? The first thing out of your bloody mouth is, we'll take a loan. How about cutting some stuff? Cut it all across the board by 10%, whatever. Why not? I understand it's the Democrat that just cannot possibly move within our means. I got that. Oh, trust me, the rest of us out here will have to live within our means.
He just carried that right off the podium, right back there, didn't he? Real quick, 6 years ago, under Jacobs and Schneider, the numbers were phenomenal. Money was coming in. Budgets were never in a deficit. They cleaned house, made things right, put $8 million in the account. By the way, we talked about this the last meeting, and I checked, and you were right. It wasn't $8 million. It was 7.1 after you guys were finished with it, because you moved 900,000, as was just discussed, moving funds around. 900,000 went to open space. So it was 8 million, then it became 7.1 million because things were moved over. So that was the change. But they had the $8 million, which was the beginning of the surplus. I remember talking with Kenny years ago about, I believe you said when you came in, they went, here it all is. And there wasn't enough to make payroll or something. They were so broke back then. And those guys climbed out of that. I mean, it was the first time there was ever a surplus that I ever remember in West Vincent, that they had real money coming in. So anyway, the only thing I gotta say is, like everybody else is saying, there needs to be a treasurer, and I hope that you guys do this board, because as Sarah said, okay, second time we agreed tonight, just telling you guys, that we're on a roll. You do need that. And Tom is actually right, because in Tredifferent, they figured out where they could cut 10%. They went to each department and went, where do you need to cut things? Because they found overlapping, the duplicity in things. So they were able to take a lot of money from these departments because it wasn't needed in those areas. But the bottom line is, when there was a treasurer issue, when Jacobs and Schneider were in there, there was a guy that took over and cleaned things up and made things right once he got a hold of the numbers. And I won't say, I'm only going to say his initials. It was Mike Schneider. So you may want to talk to the man, because I think he can help you out.
Very good, thank you. Mike, are you ready to come on board? Volunteer your time.
I'll help you a
We'll
little
put
bit.
you on the
Select
committee.
first month.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on to public comment for items not on the agenda. Seeing none, I'll
Wait,
entertain.
wait, wait. It's not done.
Just a couple things. Only been a half hour.
By the way, I looked it up. The French don't have a term for sucks, but it's rubbish, and it's c'est nu. Just so you know, it means it's rubbish. The treasurer job is going to be advertised. By the way, you're advertising as opposed to just pointing, because that has not been what it's been for the last couple years. They haven't advertised, and they've just had a headhunter put treasurers in. So you're going to advertise for the treasurer?
If we decide that we're going to hire a treasurer.
Okay, great. Okay. And the last thing, I heard something about the employee handbook not being adopted. So is there a new employee handbook you guys were talking about? It hadn't been adopted, or?
All I know is the copy that was sent to you. Questions.
And that's a new one, or is it an old one?
I don't know when it was adopted. put on that? 'Cause the one you sent me, Steph,
Yeah, they took it away from me.
that was one of the
Who
first
is
things
this
I
A?
asked for when I first came here was, can I see the handbook and the job description? I was told they were working on it. Never got one.
So it could be what, 4 years old, 5 years old? You have no idea. Okay, long time? Okay, because somebody was fired using that handbook and it was never adopted. If it was never adopted, that's kind of funny. So, I don't know. I'm kind of interested in that because somebody was fired using that handbook, quoting out of it. And,
Yeah, and it may be a different.
it could be a different one.
version.
That's all I'm asking. That's right. There you go. Thanks. Maybe we can find out when the last adopted one is. I'd
On
like
my
to.
list
Okay.
settled.
You got a pile now. So I'm not in a hurry. I'm just interested in it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Really
Very good.
important.
Okay. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Sorry, can we go back to having
No.
regular? So, okay, give me one second, Bernie, because you clearly have a thing for me, and I'm not sure
I
why.
don't think for you. I just
You
answered your question. I
called
asked
me
you a
a
question.
minute ago, and now you're telling me, no, I'm asking a question because we didn't have these communication problems. We didn't have budget problems. We didn't have these same kind of issues in the past. We had 2 regular formal meetings a month. It was acknowledged as 2 meetings a month. One of the really big important parts of that is you can pay the bills every 2 weeks. So your vendors get paid quickly. So they're going to come back and they're going to answer the phone when they know they're going to get paid. Like our road contractors in the past were willing to work here because they were going to get paid in less than 30 days. That's a big deal for a small company. This idea that we can't have 2 meetings a month just has really been under my skin since that whole concept was thrown away. It's so disrespectful of the public. You got to come in and engage with the public. If we can't sit here till 9 o'clock, why in the hell is anybody in the job? It's not that big a deal, but it gives the public an opportunity to be involved, and it gives you a chance to do the work in the public eye the way it's supposed to be done. That's why I'm asking, because half of this wouldn't be a problem. And she wouldn't be asking, some of the residents wouldn't be asking, they wouldn't have the idea, workshop, not workshop, meeting, not meeting. Do I go? Well, it's important. Are they going to make any decision? Every meeting is important. You can make, obviously, you can make decisions tonight, but you should just call it a meeting. Why not just call it a meeting? It would be nice if we could just have that. 2 meetings. Thank you.
Elizabeth,
How many years have I been volunteering for? Maybe 2, right? My name on my resignation day was misspelled. I know that the township administration has received funds for training. And I'm asking you to please consider investing in communication skills. Because when someone asks a question, I believe they should be allowed to finish it. If a budget does not make sense, it has more to do with the person who creates it than those who review it. I'm a bit frustrated right now, so I'm taking a sweet moment so I don't use French. There were examples during meetings when people were mistreated and spoken to disrespectfully by some who are present. I won't point fingers, Bernie. I stopped volunteering for one of the departments because it got too political. And I realized it's more than political, it's just plain fucking rude. Oops.
That's Frank.
Excusez-moi, s'il vous plaît.
Daughter.
I love you. My request is that you allow us to love this place. We will not continue to do so if we see that every time there's an issue, there's pointing fingers. When we point fingers, whether it's John or Jackie or my friend, that says more about us who point the fingers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you all.